Hi, everybody. It's Holly Burns of Holly Burns Psychic. Welcome to Great Awakening Update number 4. Today, I'm going to talk about how people on the planet are coming together in order to balance the divine energy of the planet. So, Gaia right now is out of balance to the divine masculine side and has been for several thousand years. And right now, in order for the humanity to ascend to the highest frequency we've ever brought Earth to, we need to bring ourselves into balance and alignment. It starts from each individual person and then it flows out to the whole planet. So, and that means within yourself, you must be divinely feminine and divine masculine balance within you. Well, also, the planet needs to be that way. Earth needs to be that way as well. And so many souls are here to do that work. Many, many, many souls are here to power up the divine feminine because there's plenty of divine masculine to go around on the planet right now. And we really need to power up the feminine to balance it out. So that's what we're doing right now. A lot of that is happening right now. And a lot of people are coming together and doing work together to balance that. So I have a couple of stories to tell you about two different client stories about balancing the divine energy of the planet that I thought would be cool for you to hear, to recognize in your own lives when you see people that suddenly want to get a divorce and they're like, what? Like they've been together for like 25 years. What were they doing? And then bam, like they just want to shift and change and go and they want to go with other people. And then they line up with new people and they have all these new things happening. Or they want to quit their job. They've been at their job for 30 years and they're like, I'm just going to quit. I got to go do something else now. And you're like, what? And so a lot of that's happening right now all over because people are being called to these soul contracts that they have with each other. We're like, okay, when we're 50, we're going to meet and we're going to line up and then we're going to do this work together. So a lot of times this requires them to be doing something completely different for the first half of their life. And then bam, they meet up and they've got the rest of their life to do this other work together. Some people have been friends for many, many, many years too. And they're also aligning and doing work together as well. So you can kind of watch it from both sides. But if you do see a lot of disruption happening, it can be because things are aligning to new frequencies, which requires people to make a lot of life changes. So there's a lot of shifting happening right now with people's jobs, where they're living, what they're doing with their time. And some of that is why the work from home thing and all the flexibility started coming to reality through the process of, a few years ago. Because that was some of that breaking through into reality that people have been asking for more freedom, more personal freedom to be able to do what they want to do with their time and energy. So I have two stories to share about that with you today. The first one is from my client named Jill Dollar, and she said, please tag me, use my name, because she's so excited about her story. She thinks it's great. And she's a life coach and a co-host of a podcast called Listen or Don't Listen Podcast, which is the coolest name. I think that's the bestest name ever. So please go listen to her podcast and support her. So I met her when she was wondering about a house that her and her husband had come across, and they were like, "Oh my God, we must have this house. We must live here." And it's got some small acreage, some acreage on it, the property, and they really wanted to be able to take it and do what they wanted with it. And she was wondering if their offer was going to be accepted or not when we were first met. And so that was very, very fun for us to talk about because it was sounded so exciting and fun. And I was like, okay, let me see what I'm getting on it. She's like, I just want to know, is it going to go through? Are we supposed to be there? Like, why are we so compelled to want to go there? And so I delved into it. And what I got on it was that, and this is what I want to share with you, because many times we're lining up with something from a past life. We're bringing it into this life to balance it and bring the divine feminine energy back into balance with our karmic lifelines and what's happened to us in other lives that needs to be finished. So we're balancing all that out. So I got that her and her husband had actually lived on that exact piece of land before in around the 1800s or so, and that they were doing some homesteading on that property to make it their own, right? With from the government, right? So they are doing all that, and suddenly he got sick and he couldn't do the work. So here she's faced with being a homesteader and taking care of an ill husband that was in the house. I saw him inside, like ill and unable to do something. So maybe he came down with like MS or, something that just, he was just really sickly. And I think it was a lung thing. Oh yeah, I think it was, I'm getting that again now. I think he just said it was a lung thing, right? And I think she said that in this life, her husband also has something going on with the respiratory system or the throat, something with coughing or something that also connected into this life. So many times we'll have the same physical attribute from a past life that we're still working on transcending and balancing. We'll have that again in a new form in this lifetime. So I believe she correlated with me what I was getting on with that. I think I remember that, something like asthma or allergy or something in this life. She'll have to give me details on that in the comments. Okay, Jill? So, um, she had to go out and like get the crops in. She had to make sure they had enough food for the winter and take care of him at the same time. So she had all this work she was so weary from. It was incredibly difficult. And he was so sad that he couldn't help her after they had gotten this little dream cabin. And I believe they were like in their 20s. If I recall correctly, now they were like in their 20s and they were young when they got the cabin. It was just a little shanty cabin that they built on the property at that time to start off with. And they were so happy. They had a cute little, I think I told her they had like a little fence around the little yard of the little shanty house, but I'm trying to make sure I'm not mixing that up with someone else's reading. But all the things I was getting were like things that she was correlating with what they liked in this life still. And I said, you guys made a soul agreement. In this lifetime, he said, I want to flip this around and I want to take care of my wife. I'm going to provide for her in this life. I'm going to make up for it. And so they want to go back to the same property. And he has all these big plans. I said, what I'm getting is he's saying that he wants to be able to fix it up and make it all perfect and do the things he couldn't do before. And he wants to putter on the property and make the landscaping just how he wants it and put in a rock garden if he wants to and put in a little shed over there if he wants to and put some fence in here. And she said, that's exactly what he wants to do. He wants to go out and just putter around and make it all just perfect. I said, yeah, every square inch. She goes, yeah, that's what he was saying. So she was so excited to get these correlations. She's like, oh, okay, I'm so excited. I hope I get it now. It's just so, this makes so much sense. Thank you so much. And she hadn't heard back yet at the end of the reading. But then right when I was setting down my next person and she was saying goodbye, her phone rang. And then she left the store because I was doing readings at Jewweed, which is going to open up in Excelsior May 1st. So I'll be back there doing readings in person on May 1st, a couple days a month. And so she took the phone call and she walked out. Then she came back in and tapped me on the shoulder about, I don't know, maybe a half hour later. And she said, that was my husband calling to tell us, or I think it was her husband, not the realtor. That was my husband calling to tell us we got the house. So she was so excited. So what a wonderful, wonderful story of divine balancing, right? Just beautiful, balancing that energy out. And they're going to be so happy there. So think of the energy they are going to imprint on the earth from that experience together. They're going to be so happy and they're going to just be, beams of happiness and love coming out from that geographical spot and really blessing the land and really raising the vibration of the earth from their life together. So that's really important work souls are coming together to do now. My second story is another client who was working on a project that he wanted to get promoted, and he lined up with this woman who actually does part of what she does is does promotions. And he wanted to know if I thought it was a good idea if he worked with her or not. So he asked me for a reading on that. And when I was doing the reading and finding out if it was a good idea or not, the woman's higher self came in and said, I owe you. And I said, what for? What do you owe him for? And so I downloaded all these cards on the table and all these different storylines I got put together about what happened. And I put together this I tuned in to this past lifeline with both of them. And here's the story. So he was, and they're working on this through different lifetimes. So this was another lifetime where they were working on divine balance and the balance of divine feminine and masculine in that lifetime. And she owes him from that lifetime. And so she's balancing that out in this lifetime. Okay. So from that lifetime, it was back in the olden days of like, the 1100s, the thousands, somewhere, I don't know what years it was when castles were at their height in Europe, but it was a time where they had the kingdoms and the castles and the kings and queens that would rule the little kingdoms all around everywhere, right? Sprinkled around the land. And so she was the king's wife, and the king was the family lineage, and she was his wife. So, the queen at the time, but not the ruler. The king was the ruler. And they were walking down the city street, and they came upon Steve, who was on the side of the street, and he was very ill and kind of crippled, and he was unable to work, and he was like begging for help to somebody to help him, like hire him for something that he could earn money, or asking for some money for some people to help him because he needed to get a few things for himself because he was ill and supporting himself. He was all by himself. It was just him, and he lived in a little hut. I got this vision that he was living out in the woods in this little hut, mostly just supporting himself because he was no longer able to work because he was too ill. And so what I had gotten is that early in life he was a very young, healthy boy and able to do everything. And that as he got older, he started to get sicker and sicker, and he was walking with a walking stick, so he couldn't walk well. He was walking with a walking stick. And I got that he was like hunched over walking with a walking stick. But I didn't know what was wrong with him. I just knew he was sick. Something sickly that caused him to have to use a walking stick. And he was on the side of the road, and he was like hunched over like this. And he had previously worked for the king in the castle, doing something with, and I didn't even know this was a job till after, but it was a job. I saw him doing something with wheat stalks, grain stalks, like a wheat stalk with a head on it, and then the stalks and the straw. And apparently that was a job back then where they would like shuck the wheat and like do something with it. And they had to do it all by hand back then. So uh I was kind of thinking of like the Rip Van Winkle story where they like wove it into twines and turned it into gold or whatever it was, right? So it was like something like that. He was doing something like that down in the lower part of the castle, but he was unable to work fast enough. As time got on, he got sicker and sicker, and he was unable to do his duties to the quota that was required. So he got fired from his job. So his husband had fired this guy or somebody. I'm getting somebody below the husband, not the husband, but some like, some castle worker guy that worked for the king had like let him go because he could no longer. So the king didn't know him, didn't recognize him personally when he was on the side of the street because he's just such a uppity person that he didn't even pay him any attention. And little did he know he had worked for him earlier. But the the woman that is promoting him in this life, when she was the queen back then, she recognized him, and she wanted to reach out and help him and give him something. And her husband stopped him and said, like, don't pay any attention to the peasants. He's a lowly he's sick. Stay away. Like you could get sick too. Don't touch him. Like, like that. And she had to listen to him at that point in that moment. And off they went. And it changed her life though, because as I said, they were working on divine feminine and masculine balance as a team in that life, right? So his influence on her changed her life. From that day forward, she influenced her children. She could not influence the king. He was not he was not going anywhere. He wasn't going to change. But she could change her children. So she worked very hard to help her children be divinely balanced individuals and told them to treat everybody with compassion and raise compassionate people to take the lineage from the father after the father was, dead. And the younger children could be the ruler of the kingdom. So it was really big. He influenced her more than he knew, right? So in this life, she wanted to flip it around and she did want to help him. So in this lifetime, that's how he came to her, and she promoted his project on a national level, on a national platform. So it was a pretty big help. It was pretty awesome. And I do feel like they have And that's helping to develop that's also helping to balance the divine feminine and masculine in this lifetime, because his product, his thing that he was promoting, had to do with helping people find their divine balance. So she took on his project and promoted it and said, like, hey, you know, follow this person, take this person's product to heart and purchase it. And so that's pretty cool, huh? And so I do feel like they also would probably have some connections later in life too. They might come back around and do some more work after the Great Awakening happens. They might have some other soul plans coming in the next 30 years. So it's pretty interesting to see how things pan out, right? And I do remember now, it's coming back to me now. I do believe that I told my client that I felt like he had, like, yeah, I remember now. After during the reading, I didn't remember, I didn't get what it was. And then I was talking with him, I think, after the reading and telling him the story. And I think I downloaded at that point that I felt like he had scoliosis or something with the spine, something with his spine that crippled him or something. Or I think I did say to him, and he can confirm in the comments, but I did say to him that he had scoliosis is what I was thinking that he had in that lifetime. That's why he got gradually worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, because it was like some scoliosis type thing, I think is what I said. And he said, when I was young, they thought I might have scoliosis, and I got tested for it. I'm like, what? There you go. There's some physical proof in this lifetime that carried over from that one, right? But he doesn't have it. He didn't have it, but he was suspected of having it, and they were watching him closely for a short time. So that also happens. We will also imprint where we left off in a last lifetime and kind of pick it back up into this lifetime, into this body. And okay, I'll give you a third story, as long as we're talking. So speaking of that, here's a third story. So I have another client that came to me and she said, yeah, I just always feel like I'm doing really good. I'm in my flow. Everything's going great. And then I kind of have this like underlying feeling that like something's gonna come back and bite me in the butt, bite me in the ass, And so I'm like, well, all right, well, let's dig into that. And I got from her also that it was from a past lifetime where she was the daughter of the king in one kingdom. Because there was a lot of kingdoms back then. They used to have like maybe like 3 square miles was like a kingdom, or 5 square miles or 10 square miles at the most. There was a lot of little kingdoms is what I was getting from the olden days. And that as time went on, they got fought over, and then they would get melded into larger and larger kingdoms with less and less kings and queens. So that's why I'm getting a lot of people were in that area, in that era. And so she was the daughter of the king, and he was the king of the other kingdom. So let's see now, was he the king and she was the daughter? Yep, he was the king in another, and the next kingdom over. So he was like, maybe like around her age or a little older. And then her father was up over here. So he was coming to town to fight against her father. And she saw him when he came to town to fight against her father. And they saw each other and they instantly connected. And she fell in love with him instantly. And she ran away from her own kingdom and royalty, a life of royalty, to go be with this other guy. And when she did, she had to change her identity so nobody would know who she was. So she changed her whole identity so nobody could know that she was the daughter of the king from the other kingdom. And she lived with him for the rest of her life. But she always wondered if her father was going to send out knights to follow her and capture her and bring her back. And so she was always looking over her shoulder for the rest of her life. And that's why she felt like this now. She's always like, I got to look over my shoulder, like, what's going on? And so when I told her that, that's what I was getting, she was just like, that so makes sense to me. And so it can be really interesting, the connections that we can have, right? So then she was able to relax about that and go, okay, Thank you. Now I understand. I'm just going to trust my positive manifestations in this lifetime, and I'm going to continue on. And so she can balance out herself and get rid of that negative side, which is going to pull down her frequency out of her balanced divine masculine and feminine state of being. And she was really working hard on being a balanced individual, but this one thing kept tipping her. So we figured it out, and she feels much more aligned now. So cool stuff. Cool stuff. All right. Happy awakening, everybody. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to put them in the comments, or you can look me up under Holly Burns Psychic on all social medias, except for I'm not on TikTok. But I do have a website, hollyburnspsychic.com, and look me up if you need anything. Thanks, guys.